Good morning.
Good morning.
Wait a minute. See, you probably need to tell me when it's time to go.
He'll tell me.
Okay. Okay. Ready? Okay. Good morning. My name is Clayton Camp, and my family's been involved in Kern County agriculture for a few years. Since 1917, my grandfather came to Kern County, and we've seen a lot of change in that time, and in my tenure since I've been out of school and back at work. I too have seen a lot of change, and we see a lot of change that has yet to be made, that needs to be made for the survival of California agriculture. And I'm excited that Carly is running for Senate. She is part of that change that needs to take place. She understands what it takes to run a business, and run a business in California, and how hard that is. Extremely hard in this overregulated, burdensome state that needs to be addressed. She understands that the Endangered Species Act has devastated California agriculture and has created a regulatory drought that we are now dealing with. She understands that that act must be changed, and can be changed to affect the Delta, can be changed through the use of sound science, can be changed by addressing invasive species that are now there, that are not native, that are part of the problem, and wastewater upgrades on the Delta that need to be addressed for California agriculture. It's not a fair shake what we're getting today, and we understand environmental concerns, and I know Carly does, but there are things that need to be addressed in a more fair manner, that some change needs to occur for that to happen. The big thing for us is in that change of Endangered Species Act, the Delta smelt and how it's worth more than man is, or the jobs. Businesses like ours in California will continue to decline if it isn't addressed. So we are excited that Carly is running for Senate, and we know that she can affect change. And it is my pleasure to introduce Carly Fiorina.
Thank you so much, and good morning. And you know, Clayton has such a great business here, and it's a great story about how this business got started by his grandfather, who came here in 1917. People like Clayton and his family are what make this state go. They are always what have made this state go, and they are the kinds of folks that we need to focus on to get economic growth back to this state. This is my third visit to the Valley over the last couple of months, and every time I come here, I'm really heartened by the spirit of the people that I meet. And I'm also very saddened by the significant and really disproportionate impact that the economic crisis we're going through is having on this region in particular. You know, in Bakersfield alone, the unemployment rate is now 15.1%. The community's wage base is below the state average, and the area faces poverty rates above the state average as well. These are tough times for the people of Bakersfield. And this community in particular needs government policy that won't cripple agriculture and the businesses like Clayton's that depend on agriculture. This state needs government policy that won't cripple oil and gas development and goods movement. And unfortunately, we are getting exactly the opposite out of our government and the folks in Washington, D.C. right now. The U.S. Senate actually can play, and does play, a hugely important role in the lives of Californians, in the economy of Bakersfield. The action of the U.S. Senate impacts every family and every business in California and in America now, and it is one of the reasons why I have declared my candidacy to unseat Barbara Boxer. And one area in particular where the U.S. Senate could make a real impact on Bakersfield economy and on the economy of this entire region is exactly what Clayton talked about. It is by taking action to get water flowing to farms again. You know, I come from the real world, not the world of politics, and in the real world, we kind of hopefully use our common sense. And common sense tells us that it really shouldn't take an act of Congress to put the needs of people ahead of a small fish. But apparently it does take an act of Congress. It literally takes an act of Congress. Hundreds of thousands of acres lie fallow this year. The University of California at Davis estimates that in 2009, the lack of water coming from both the Central Valley Project and the State Water Project could result in the loss of up to 95,000 jobs. And that lack of water has already resulted in the loss of over 42,000 jobs. And while, of course, the persistent drought has contributed to those effects, what would have been a difficult problem has become a crisis. And this is a man-made crisis. It is a government-manufactured crisis. This crisis is the result of aggressive and ill-considered implementation of the Endangered Species Act. There is no question that this act has been an important tool in our conservation efforts, but it is also true that the act prohibits the consideration of economic and social impact, and that defies common sense as well. The recent decision to limit water flowing to the valley was made, in truth, by nameless, faceless bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. These nameless, faceless federal officials are unaccountable to voters for their action. They don't see the impact of their decision, and there is little recourse to reverse the decision that they made in 2008 to put forward a biological assessment that caused the water flow to be reduced here. The only recourse to reverse their decision is, in fact, an act of Congress. Now, Congress tried to act, but Senate Democrats, led by Barbara Boxer, who is elected by the people of California to help the people of California, Barbara Boxer instead turned her back on the people of California and defeated a California Water Amendment. This amendment needs to be reconsidered immediately and approved. The amendment that was put forward would have removed for 1 year the bureaucratic roadblocks that deny Californians access to essential water supplies from the Delta. It would have temporarily allowed water to flow and to put farmers and farm workers back in the fields, while further studies could be conducted, the science could be examined, and a balanced plan of action to address this issue could be developed. Sounds pretty logical. Sounds like a lot of common sense. And beyond being logical and commonsensical, there is precedent for this. In fact, in 2003, Senator Pete Domenici sponsored a similar amendment relating to the overprotection of a little fish in New Mexico called the silvery minnow, which threatened the water supply of New Mexico and was going to cost many New Mexicans their jobs. At that time in 2003, Barbara Boxer supported the amendment.